Should we test volume levels?
Yeah, we're going to test volume levels.
Yeah,
that's about where they're supposed to be.
Cool.
Oh,
that wow! Way to go, impressive.
I have been interested in the phrase cupcake recently.
What do you mean the phrase cupcake?
So people use cupcake as an insult for liberals.
I thought that was snowflake.
They use that too, but like it see, whenever people use the phrase cupcake online, it always makes me think of the first Star Trek J.J. Abrams film. When
it's been years since I've seen it, so you have to remind me.
Kirk gets into a bar fight with a guy who's in the Federation pretty early on in the film.
Yeah. I remember that.
And the guy at one point uses the word cupcake as a derogatory towards him. He's like, cupcake? And it's like, okay.
That's what you're going with? Wow.
So it's like he's sweet and portion controlled?
Yeah, you know that guy walked out of that bar just a couple minutes later, was like, damn it, I could have done better.
That wasn't my first choice.
I sound like an idiot.
Shit.
I could have, damn it, I could have called him anything.
I could have called him like a yogurt or something.
Yeah, I could have tried. I could have at least attempted. Fucking cupcake. How is that insulting? It's like being called cuck. I don't even know what the fuck that means, asshole. Translate from dick to normal language.
Yeah, in regular terms, even like snowflake. Like, you mean I'm a unique individual?
Yeah. How about you take your words, translate it from asshole to English, and then we'll discuss.
I am one of a kind. I'm a snowflake.
Yeah. It's like Snowflake probably came from Fight Club. Now that I think about it.
Oh, really?
Snowflake's got to have come from Fight Club. That's a phrase in Fight Club.
Is it?
You are not he yells it into a megaphone.
Oh, right.
You are not a special snowflake.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how that finished because I outgrew Fight Club because I'm 26.
I mean, Fight Club is
and
still...
I outgrew Fight Club at age 22.
Fight Club is still a fun movie to watch.
Oh, no, it's a fine movie. It's just there's a lot of weird toxic masculine bullshit going on in that movie. It's kind of fucked up.
It is interesting how your dynamic with films changes as you get older. And that's actually kind of the purpose of the show.
Yeah, actually, that is actually a very good point. That ties it in quite nicely. I mean, I would say a couple of my favorite films still dominate my conscience, stuff like Pulp Fiction and Star Wars. But I will say, I think that's part of the... I mean, we talked about this in the Harry Potter episode, where it's like part of the reason behind this show is that you need to take a step back sometimes. Take a step back, have your maturity kick in, and say, is this still really as valuable to me now as it was then?
And that's exactly why we will never do an episode about Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I've never actually watched that show.
It's a show that's fantastic when you're 14. And as you get older, it's just like, Shinji, what is your problem? What is wrong with you? They just want you to do this thing. You just have to be present. What is wrong with you? I can't.
Oh my god, I'm dying. That's it. I'm dead. Show over.
Show over. I killed Andrew.
Oh god.
We'll catch you next week on Agree to Disagree.
You do realize, like, the 5 people who I get to listen to this show are all now horrifically typing rage comments, right?
Oh man, I would love some rage comments. Are you kidding me?
Bring it, 5 people who I get to listen to this show.
I still stand by what I say, which is the moment I get a rage comment from someone that we don't know is the moment I know I have made it. You do realize
picking on Evangelion's gonna do it, right? Like, I don't think I've run into a show that is more universally worshipped in its, like, subgenre. It's between, like, that and the Batman for comic book characters. Like, you said what about Batman? You said what?
I'm sorry, Batman?
That guy.
Who?
Exactly. Should we do a show? I feel like we've derailed like 7 times over.
All right, ready?
3,
2,
1.
Hi, I'm John.
I'm Andrew.
And this is Agree to Disagree.
And welcome back to our part 2 of the Matrix sequels,
Yes.
everybody.
I want you all to know that this was almost a trilogy.
It just... We were so close.
It was going to be that I watched the second one and didn't want to watch any more.
John almost quit on us.
Yeah. But I decided in the last moment that, you know what, I would bravely, courageously strike forward and move on.
Oh, they're not that bad.
No, they're actually not. But I mean, it's just a movie.
In the end, yeah. Like, why are you getting so bent out of shape about a film?
But
half the internet when it comes to Twilight. Come on, they're not aimed at you. They're still bad.
I'm Team Jacob. Team Jacob for life.
I mean, you could probably grate cheese on his abs.
Great.
Oh,
Barely a joke.
I'm leaving again.
It's important before we jump into the sequels that we give some context for the first film. For those of you who have not seen the first Matrix film,
you fucking heathens.
Why have you not seen the first Matrix film?
It's actually really, really good.
Yes. You should watch the first Matrix film. Period.
All right, have we gotten enough warnings out of the way?
All right.
Yeah, let's do this.
Right. Andrew, give some background for the Matrix.
So, first Matrix, just Matrix in general. The idea is that turns out humanity is actually enslaved by a bunch of machines to be turned into their batteries in a system known as the Matrix, which is the world at the edge of humanity according to the machines, which is 1999, when the machines were not thinking for us as much as they were. Anything beyond that point, according to them, is when it breaks into, we were basically running your civilization, which in fairness makes sense. Anyway, man breaks out of the Matrix by a hacker by the name of Neo, then escapes onto the team of the Nebuchadnezzar, which is a ship run by the Captain Morpheus, who has a crew underneath him. Crew ends up getting betrayed by one of their people by the name of Cypher, who has become extremely disillusioned with the quote-unquote real world and just wants to go back to the Matrix and forget everything that Morpheus showed him. Neo dies after during a attempt to save Morpheus from getting kidnapped by agents. He dies and is then resurrected at the end through means that are not properly explained, but through something that is known as him being the One, which is talked about quite a bit during the movie as a person who is reborn within the Matrix who is capable of bending the Matrix to his will.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, Neo becomes sort of a pseudo-Jesus figure in that moment where it's like...
Basically.
He dies and was born again.
Also, important note for the second and third film, actually, is the villain of the first movie, who is a man by the name and title of Agent Smith, played by Hugo Weaving, who is essentially the G-Man from Half-Life by way of a psychopath. Wears the G-Man style clothing, is an actual agent for the machines, which is a sentient AI program within the Matrix, whose entire purpose is keeping order. Turns out he actually has a personality and opinions and really fucking hates the human race. Ends up getting murdered by Neo at the end, which is astonishing because humans are supposed to never be able to kill agents, and becomes an important plot point in parts 2 and 3. Is there anything I missed?
No, I mean, yeah, probably.
I mean, probably a bunch of stuff.
The general broad strokes of the film, yes.
Sweet.
You hit it all.
Well, then should we move on to Reloaded then?
Yes. Reloaded is a movie that starts off, Neo is discovering his powers, and very first thing I want to say, Morpheus is fucking cocky.
Oh, yeah.
Morpheus is like cock of the walk right now. It's like, I believe the Oracle. I'm the best person.
It's mostly I literally found freaking cyberpunk Jesus. Come at me, what you got? Like, I literally found him, bitches.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness to him, I'd be pretty cocky about that, too. Like, we're literally enslaved by machines, and I found a way to destroy all of them. Oh, I'm so good at this.
So, essentially, the movie opens up realizing that that the machines are drilling towards Zion. It starts off with that
reference. Zion is the last human city in the real world. It's this like bastion of human existence, and the idea is that this is the one remaining place that human beings exist in the real world. And yes, machines are currently drawing towards it.
So Morpheus and several other captains are meeting up together in this safe spot to talk about the plans that they found where the machines are burrowing into Zion. Mm-hmm. What happens in here is the general point of it I already have described, but everything else is just a setup to show off how badass Neo is. He's at a point now where he's been the one for 6 months now.
Yep. They actually explicitly say that multiple times at the beginning of the film.
And he's kind of still discovering / becoming comfortable with his power.
He's stretching his muscles.
Yes.
Basically.
At this point, Neo has discovered he can fly.
Which makes some really dope ass scenes later in the movie.
Yeah, they actually refer to it as he's doing his Superman thing.
Which, God, that's a good quote.
I mean, now the interesting thing about that is that at the time, Keanu Reeves, who plays Neo,
was he considered for Superman?
They were considering him for Superman, seriously.
Shit.
Either before or right after the first Matrix film.
He would have made a decent Kent.
Yeah.
All right, maybe that would. I don't know. I like my Superman's a lot more boisterous than Keanu. He makes for a good John Wick. I wouldn't really like
John Wick is a natural evolution of the popularity of the Matrix films, and I love the John Wick films.
Oh, those movies are so great. Stylish murder. Basically.
So I have an interesting question for you.
Yeah.
Before Revolutions was made, the second Matrix film, what did you think Zion would be? What did you think it would look like?
I don't actually know.
Because they talk about Zion, the last human city.
What, in the first one?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, I can't actually remember that far. Okay, for reference, audience, I saw The Matrix, like, kind of when it came out, like, months after it came out on DVD. Like, I saw it when I was 10, which, by the way, gold star on that one, parents. But actually, I have to revoke that terrible sarcastic gold star because my mom sat through Reloaded with me in a theater, and man, shit, that was awkward. Anyway, minor existential moments from my youth. Seriously, Mom, if you ever listen to this, I am so sorry for putting you through that. 11-year-old me really wanted to see that movie.
Fair.
No, but with Zion, I never actually, like, I can't even conjure up what I would have imagined. Maybe it's because I'm just so disconnected from that. I don't think I would have imagined that much different than what they showed me in Reloaded. I imagined an underground city. That's certainly for sure. And because of the aesthetic of what everyone's kind of dressed like in the ships, you can assume it's kind of grungy and dim. Maybe I imagined more of like a Fallout vault rather than this like sprawling underground kind of metropolis thing they have going on. Yeah, you know, a Fallout vault would have been my better comparison. Just very grungy and room to room. Just kind of like a really bad nuclear bunker.
Yeah. And so what they have is essentially a pretty deep city. It's still very much Fallout-esque. Very much bunker-esque, but like imagine bunker on a massive scale.
Oh yeah, big time.
Like this is clearly a last standing point, like a last standoff.
Yeah,
for mankind.
It's meant to be the Alamo of the entirety of mankind.
And the thing that really strikes me about their arrival there, and I'm going to move forward here, is that they immediately essentially the Nebuchadnezzar's on shore leave.
Yeah, kind of. That's a good way of putting it.
Trinity and Neo finally have a moment where they're by themselves in the elevator, and it's like finally they drop down their duffels and they start making out in the elevator. It's like, are you telling me that they weren't getting freaky on the Nebuchadnezzar?
Yeah, are you telling me there wasn't just like rabid fucking happening? Yeah, they're like, come on.
Oh, finally.
Like that's stupid. Like I get maybe Morpheus is like, yo, keep it down. Like, we have to actually, like, make sure the ship is functioning. But also, like, there are 4 people on that damn ship because he only replaced Tank. Like, he didn't replace Cypher or APOC or Switch or any of the fucking people who died in the first movie. So, like, dude, 4 people. You're telling me that ship, that noise is gonna echo or something? Or you're gonna sense that they're fucking, like...
Yeah.
Like, come on.
For the record, the people who died on the Nebuchadnezzar.
Those are all the people I just
Tank,
named off.
Switch,
Dozer,
APOC, and Mouse.
Oh, and Cypher, if you didn't name him.
And Cypher.
So six
people died.
They literally replaced one dude
with Link.
Yeah, that's it. And they actually talk about that in the movie, where I think there's a mention of like, why doesn't Morpheus replace them all? He's like, there's some kind of holy thing. Like, he believes it's like fate or something. Like, Morpheus is very much a like, I rolled the dice today and this is what it came up with. I guess I'm not replacing my crew anymore. I actually imagine Morpheus having like a magic 8-ball secretly of like, do I replace my crew?
Ask again later.
Do I replace? And he like does that individually for each one. It keeps coming up no, except for Tank, and he's like, all right, I guess we're replacing him with this weird brother. I don't know. Brother-in-law. There we go.
Yes,
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, basically. No, actually, literally his brother-in-law.
It never states whether or not
Dozer was married to Z's husband, Z's sister, and Tank was Dozer's brother. So that is his brother-in-law.
All right, fair enough.
Boom.
But so basically, all Trinity and Neo want to do is fuck like rabbits.
Yep.
And unfortunately, at Zion, Neo is kind of like a Jesus figure.
Oh, not kind of like like actually a Jesus
figure. Yeah, he is legitimately a Jesus figure.
Like, people are handing him children and asking him to bless them level, like, this man is Christ.
He is legitimately reluctant to be a deity.
Yeah. And actually, that's something that they discuss a lot in the beginning of the film. Very reluctantly a deity.
Also, reluctant to be a deity sounds like an awesome name for a song.
It also sounds like it's off of a metal band, though. Like a metal band I would have stopped listening to when I was 14.
Fair enough. I did listen to System of a Down this morning.
Why?
Because I hadn't listened to them since I was in high school.
Well, how was the experiance?
I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay.
I still Toxicity is a fantastic album.
I disagree, but sure. Anyway, keep going.
So, like, it leads to this whole like. Okay, so they get off the ship, and so Neo and Trinity are doing their thing. Morpheus gets apprehended by the essential law of the area, the military, and he needs to speak to Locke, his superior.
Commander
Locke, who is basically like the equivalent of the general. Like,
I was gonna say he's
every police commissioner.
I was actually just about to make that joke. He's every police commissioner in a buddy cop movie.
In my notes, I wrote down, "I'll bust you down to lieutenant."
I was just about to make that fucking joke. I'm not even kidding. No, he's literally the police commissioner in every buddy cop movie. It's the I hate your tactics. You're on the edge, Morpheus. One more time and I'm taking your badge. Like, it's that level of just ridiculous.
Not everyone believes what you do.
That is a great quote, by the way. I'm actually disagreeing with Roger Ebert. I like that quote of, not everyone believes what you do. My beliefs don't have. What was it?
My beliefs do not require them to.
The thing is, and this is actually something they talk about a lot in the film. Morpheus is a religious zealot.
Oh, yeah.
Morpheus is, and especially after the first film, like, he was already considered the best way I can put it. He was already considered the Doc Brown figure of the captains, where it's like, oh, the crazy guy who's like a really good captain, but also he's kind of nuts and his plans are very insane.
The conclusion I came to is he's actually the most machine-like of all of the people.
Which, like, I think is...
everything about him is numbers and systems.
Which I think is purposely implied, actually.
I hope so.
I mean, certainly. But no, it's something that happens in the movie a lot. You're beginning to learn, and this is actually interesting, because in the first movie you never interact with Zion, but in the second movie all of the main interactions somehow tie back to Zion, and so there are these consistent connections of like, oh, so this is what these people think of this character, and like, you begin to learn that Morpheus is the outcast, and has been the outcast of the captains up until he found Neo, and then everything changed, and everyone's opinion of him is pretty much jumped by a lot. He's still considered crazy, but he's now considered the crazy but also right guy.
He's kind of a vindicated crazy person.
Exactly. He's the my insane beliefs were vindicated by this. That doesn't make you any less insane, but this one time it worked out.
So essentially what happens is Morpheus is in the chambers of the commander, and they're arguing. Then the head counselor comes in.
Yep.
I'm calling him head counselor, whether or not he actually is.
Yeah, just that guy.
There are several.
It's heavily
but,
implied that he is one of the head members of the council.
So he talks to them and wants to know what should be said to the people, because everyone is congregating tonight in the caverns.
Yeah.
And
he has him tell the truth. Morpheus says you should tell them the truth.
And what ends up happening is Morpheus is called on to be a person to give a sort of speech sermon about not being afraid about the robots.
Which that's got to be a Sermon on the Rock reference.
It has to be.
Damn it.
But so
he gives his speech.
What this breaks out into is a huge percussive.
It's a rave orgy. I think
the first thing I think of when I watch everyone jumping around and dancing in that slow motion camera movement is in the scene when they do the long shots. There's a lot of open lava pits. How often do people fall into the lava? Have you ever been to a dance floor?
It's got to be pretty consistent.
Like
there's got to be like what happened to Dave? Oh, he fell into the pit. God damn it!
All right. Man,
I like Dave. He was a nice guy.
He was all right.
That's got to be consistent.
The lava has claimed him.
But like I don't know. It's a sweaty rave orgy. Yes. I believe is the term that I've heard for this one.
And that whole chunk ends with Morpheus standing out on a balcony, staring into Zion, and saying, "Good night, Zion." And my first thought is, "Good night, Neverland."
Oh God, damn it! That's a good reference.
Yes,
I like that. Solid. No, well done.
If you don't like Hook, fuck you.
All right.
So Neo has been having nightmares about.
That's actually the opening scene.
Yes, the opening scene is Neo having a nightmare about Trinity's death,
and it's her dying after seemingly being involved in some sort of attack on something. It going sideways, and then her getting attacked by an agent, jumping out a window, and then dying as the agent chases her down.
Right.
Down the building, and she gets shot.
And the major thing that I took away from this was Neo never gets a full night's sleep in the entire series.
No, God, no.
Neo is constantly being woken up by either nightmares or external elements.
Yeah.
He has never had a full night's sleep.
This is
as far as I'm concerned.
This is all just the hallucinations of a very sleep-deprived man.
Down the rabbit hole we go.
Oh God, that rabbit hole is not a fun rabbit hole. So from here, I mean, the movie kind of implies what's going to happen, and then here's where The Matrix Reloaded actually hits its stride, and it actually hits the real plot.
No, before we get to that, I just want to point out, and I need to say this right now.
Did you have a timestamp on this one?
No, but when everyone else is coming home, Link comes home to his lady love.
Are you gonna quote the
the
line?
No. But her name is Z.
Yeah.
Z. Link loves Z. As in Zelda?
Oh, fuck.
There's no way that is not intentional. I'm just saying right now.
Hey, the Wachowskis are nerdy enough. That could be a legit reference.
I guarantee you that Link's lady love being named Z.
Her full name is Zelda.
Is probably short for Zelda.
That's intentional. Anyway, going away from the video game references.
Sorry.
From here, the movie actually kind of hits its stride plot-wise. Neo re-enters the Matrix. By the way, at this point, the Oracle has also been missing since Neo's last meeting with her. Since Neo became the One, the Oracle has been gone. And that's actually been something that's been heavily disrupting the plans of Zion. Is that, okay, we need to actually go on with freeing everybody, but the Oracle's gone, so we don't know how to free everyone at once. So instead, we're just going to free individual pods of people. So they've been, to use Morpheus's quote, they've been awakening minds. So they've been taking people back, which is kind of unheard of, actually. They've been awakening people en masse from the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And now Neo, at his night at Zion, gets a data card that has a message from the Oracle telling him where to meet her, which is surprising. Oh, and at this point, also, because we forgot about this, the introduction of the main villain has happened, which is Smith shows up and assimilates a dude, which, holy shit, what? Like, the first time you see that, he basically shows up at the beginning of the movie, hands someone a message at the safe house, which is his earpiece, which is symbolic of the agent's connection to the system, and then he busts in a door, while two other guys are trying to get back to Zion with a message. One guy gets out with the message, and then the other guy, Smith puts his hand through him and changes him into a Smith, and then that guy detaches from the system going back to his body.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But at this point,
Morpheus
meets up with Neo meets up with the Oracle. She tells him, okay, here are the things that are going to happen. Find this guy named the Keymaker. Then Smith shows up.
Hang on.
Sorry.
At this point, there's essentially Smith is hunting down Neo.
Yep.
In the Matrix and outside of the Matrix, because the person that he assimilated, his mind is now basically Agent Smith.
It overwrote his mind.
Which he is now Agent Smith in the physical world.
Which is kind of crazy. I actually really like that as a plot element. Well, because also we establish in the first Matrix that it's not necessarily your actual brain, it's your mind, or how your mind is perceived by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone were to overwrite it, it would make sense that they just own you at that point. But no one's ever been able to do that. So Smith just owns this guy by the name of Bane. And obviously, I mean, someone joked about this on CinemaSins, like, did his parents just know he was gonna end up being a villain? Like, come on, man. His name's
Cypher.
Bane. Like, come on.
You know what? It makes sense in the world.
But they're also like the kind of names to be terrible hacker names. You know what I mean? Like you would log on to a chat room in like 2001, be like, this guy, I'm named Bane. No, I'm Cypher. Like, this just makes sense.
I'm Triple X 420 Triple X Bane Triple X.
I'm XX Sephiroth XX.
Anyway,
so from there the movie becomes
the Oracle, as you were saying before.
The Oracle tells Neo to find this person named the Keymaker. Smith hunts down Neo. We have that crazy fight scene which looks atrocious nowadays.
So this was the moment during this where I started to realize that I had a smile on my face, and that was where I decided that instead of approaching these movies as straight up plot focused action movies, I need to view them as Western kung fu movies.
Yeah, all right.
And once I started doing that, I shut my brain off and just went with it.
Sure. So they have a fight scene that looks terrible and everybody looks like putty because early 2000 CGI kind of looks like crap.
Yeah.
Morpheus. God, why do I keep saying Morpheus? Neo ends up fighting a bunch of Smiths because Smith has now started overwriting just fucking everyone in square blocks of not New York City, which is what I'm going to be calling it from here on out. Manages to get away, and they find this person named the Merovingian, which is, oh my god, I'm beginning to understand why people get confused in this movie. Not that I don't understand what's going on, but like now that I'm saying words, I'm like, wow, there are a lot of moving parts to this bullshit.
Oh yeah.
So they find this guy by the name of the Merovingian, who is implied to be an ancient, powerful program that's been around since the early days of the Matrix.
Right. His whole thing is to essentially know things. He is information incarnate.
He is the walking black market of information.
Mm-hmm.
And he refuses to give them the Keymaker. He's obtained the Keymaker recently and is hiding him out. And he's like, no, he's mine. Like, that's adorable that you think you can just beat me up and take him from me, but no. After some kind of mind games where it ends up becoming Persephone, his wife, kind of playing a game of chess against him and saying, oh, you know what? I do also kind of hate my husband. So why not? Fuck it. I'll sick you guys on him. It becomes Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity attempting to get the Keymaker out of the Merovingian's compound and then getting chased down by what I think is one of the cooler elements, which are implied to be earlier forms of agents back when they used to just be like monstrosities.
Yeah.
And so there are guys who are actually ghosts. There's a woman who's implied to be an alien. There are guys who are implied to be werewolves. And it's just like crazy shit just starts going down. And the best fight scene I would say in maybe the entire series happens, which is Neo versus all of the Merovingian's henchmen.
Right.
That has no CGI.
So it's a double staircased foyer full of weapons, and it's just an awesome fight.
And it's no CGI. It's clearly a bunch of wire foo and stuntmen, and it looks great.
It looks great.
It's probably the best looking fight scene in the whole movie. After that, the Merovingian loses all his men. It's like, you know what? This is really fun, but I'm going to leave. Walks out of the door. Neo ends up locked in this mountain compound and attempting to find his friends. The highway scene happens, which is freaking dope, which is I'm just going to put these things out there because the scene itself is really cool to look at, but essentially the moving parts are the Merovingian's men are hunting down Trinity and Morpheus and the Keymaker.
Specifically the ghosts.
Exactly. The agents, because keep in mind, there are still agents. Agents are hunting down the Keymaker, but also the Merovingian does not want the Keymaker to die because the agents are trying to kill him. It's, no, we want him back. So it becomes the Merovingian and the agents and Trinity Morpheus all in this weird triangle where everybody hates each other. There's, in fact, one of the better moments that you realize that this is happening where an agent jumps on Trinity's car and peels back the roof, and the ghost kind of lets it go for a second, just lets Morpheus shoot at the guy because he's like, no, fuck, I hate that guy too. Yeah. Like, it's very implied by what he's doing, where he's like, I could kill you, but, you know, you'd shoot him. From there, the Keymaker is actually rescued by Trinity and Morpheus after a very long chase scene. And then that famous scene happens. So the Keymaker explains that there is a room in this unknown hotel, or in this building.
It's an office building.
In an office building that will unlock only at a certain time if certain things are met, and there's a massive bomb that will detonate the whole floor if this fucks up.
Yeah, basically they have to do everything right, and it has to be in sync. Otherwise, and if everyone will die.
All dead.
Yeah.
And they get it right due to some meddling by Trinity after one of the teams dies. And what happens is the Keymaker manages to get them into the back door, basically, which is the back circuits of the entire Matrix, which are, in this case, represented by a hallway of light with wall-to-wall doors.
And that back door leads them to this hallway, which is a back door. It's sort of like backdoor entryways into every part of the Matrix. Where they have another fight with the Agent Smith, who has now duplicated himself into many Smiths.
Millions of Smiths. And then they ended up getting through that and getting to what is considered by some, not myself, to be the most confusing scene in movie history, which is
ergo vis-a-vis
Neo stumbling into the architect's room.
The architect exists in the source of the Matrix, the source code of the Matrix.
He's basically admin.
Yes. And he talks like you would expect a person on that stature to be.
Like this. It's a lot of very self-sufficient monotone and very impressed with himself monotone.
Very, very haughty, very specific.
And actually, this scene basically throws out everything we know about the Matrix up to that point.
So at this point, the architect essentially reveals to Neo that everything that they have done up to this point has been by design.
That it was going to happen anyway, and that Neo being the one is essentially the conglomeration of all the remainders that happen within the system of the Matrix. All the errors conglomerated, all the errors natural to a self-serving perfect system that conglomerate onto Neo, creating a singular being, which is the one error.
So essentially what Neo stands for is he is a series of information and abilities that resets the Matrix
now
when he returns to source.
And the other thing that's revealed in this is that Zion is also, despite not being in the Matrix, part of this equation.
Yes.
And that Neo's job at this point as the one is to leave, go to the source, refuse with the code, and rescue a certain number of people who will be
like 36 or something like that.
Who will be the exact amount of people to be able to repopulate Zion with a diverse enough gene pool to keep it healthy.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something like 6 males and the rest are females.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be the point of it. And then Zion gets repopulated, which actually probably explains why it's such a daunting large city, because that thing had to have been built over 500 years, because this has just been repeating. So, it's also known that Neo is the sixth. With the sixth one, which is talked about by the architect, where he's like, I hate talking about the Matrix in terms of versions. What I like to do is count back by numbers of statistical anomalies, at which point this would be the sixth Matrix. Anyway, that happens. Neo ends up choosing door B, which the architect was not expecting, where he kicks in the door and says, you know what, fuck all that. I'm going to go rescue Trinity, who I know is in the middle of dying right now. Saves her. She technically dies, and then he fishes out the bullet and restarts her heart because fuck you. She's fine, is back to life, and from there they exit the Matrix, and what ends up happening is
a bunch of Sentinels try to attack the Nebuchadnezzar,
which they do, and
they blow it up.
Nebuchadnezzar.
They escape in time with Morpheus and Link,
and they try and kill the crew. At which point, Neo is able to kill the Sentinels.
Yeah, what ends up happening is a bunch of the Sentinels try to attack them, and Neo stops, and he says something's different. And then he turns around and faces the Sentinels, throws his hand out, and is able to electrocute all of the Sentinels and cause them to short out, but in the process knocks him into a coma. End of second film.
And then movie 3. Let's do this summary fast because I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot of comments on. We're going to talk about this afterwards. Movie 3.
Let's do 3 fast.
Neo wakes up in some kind of train thing. Trinity rescues him. Turns out he's actually in the even
though he's not jacked in, he is still connected to the Matrix.
His mind is currently being owned by the Merovingian, who has imprisoned him in this place between dimensions, essentially, that the Merovingian owns. Which, fine, fuck you. Anyway, he owns it. Okay, whatever. They kick in the door of the Merovingian's club. Trinity puts a gun to his head and is like, you know what? Do you value your life more than ownership of him? And he's like, no, I don't. Fine, take him back. Whatever. They get him back. Then the actual shit starts going down. Zion is 6 hours away from destruction. They get defenses up. Everybody's conscripted who can use a gun, basically, and they're just asking for any and all volunteers. Z volunteers. The kid that Neo saved in the last movie volunteers. And it's essentially, it is end game here, people. Like, the machines are at the door. The Sentinels are going to eat through any hour now. Get everything working. Neo, at this point, convinces Niobe, one of the captains, to give him her ship, which is the Logos, because he has come to the conclusion that I need to go to the Machine City myself. I have to do this. I have understood my goal. The Oracle's words finally make sense to me. This is what I have to do. Trinity says, all right, I'm coming with you because I actually know how to pilot one of these damn things. And they take Niobe's ship, the Logos, to go to the Machine City. Meanwhile, the rest of the captains being the 3 captains that are left because of the EMP device that went off too early, which was done by Bane, actually. Smith.
It's not important.
Whatever, they're all fucking dead. Niobe, Morpheus, and Roland, I want to say, is the other captain of the Hammer, all head back in the Hammer to try to get back to Zion in time to rescue them, because they're the only remaining ship with an EMP device which will rescue Zion from the machines.
So essentially, the 3 captains and the rest of their crews, whatever remains of them, are heading back to Zion to help fight the war. They are far out from the battle that is going to ensue, and they know they're going to be late.
Meanwhile, Zion gets eaten through, and they have a giant burrower which is trying to get through the massive fucking blast doors, which are keeping Zion isolated from the rest of the world, and shit goes crazy. It becomes just man versus machine, basically.
It is very much like war drama.
It's incredible to look at, actually, because it's damn good looking.
Oh, still nowadays. Very good looking.
Oh, Revolution still looks good, and it becomes war drama. It's the Zion Defense Force against the literal swarm of Sentinels that are coming through. Just waves of this shit like they were Zerg. And then the Hammer trying to get back while also dealing with their own Sentinel swarm, and then Neo and Trinity. And this is the other thing. Remember Bane, the one that Smith overwrote? Yeah, he snuck his way onto the Logos and is trying to kill them and blinds Neo.
It's gotta hurt.
He literally takes like a giant electrical
cable
to the eyeballs. Like, he is blind as fuck.
Unfortunately for Agent Smith,
turns out he can see in Matrix vision because his mind is still jacked into the Matrix, so he sees Bane as Smith, which is actually a really cool visual.
Oh, yeah.
Kills him. Bane's dead. Trinity gets him to the Machine City. She dies, actually.
Yeah. Through them trying to get to the Machine City, they end up trying to breach the defenses, which are a bunch of massive Sentinel ships that throw hundreds of bombs at them, and they have to fly up through the clouds,
which is a nice moment, actually.
The electricity in the clouds ends up shorting out the Logos, and they have to dive down and hard reset the ship by pumping it. Yep. Unfortunately, Trinity does it too late, and they crash into one of the Machine City's buildings, and she essentially gets impaled by a bunch of rebar.
And she dies. And while this is happening, the hammer successfully gets back. They crash through the dock, which has now been completely taken over by Sentinels, activate the EMP. They manage to save Zion for at least a couple of hours, only to realize Commander Locke is pretty much perma-stick up his ass and is like, well, great, you saved us for a couple...
You saved the dock, but you've killed the rest of us.
Like, you basically doomed us all because, like, your EMP shorted out all of our APU units, which are essentially war mechs. And we have nothing to defend with now, so we're screwed. Thanks, guys. Like, you saved us for a couple of hours only to kill us.
It's sort of like just a big fuck you, but also fuck you, Locke.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, at this point, it comes down to what the actual problem is. Meanwhile, in the background, Smith has been steadily assimilating more and more powerful programs. He takes over Seraph, the Oracle's bodyguard. He takes over Sati, which is the girl that they were protecting. And then he takes over the Oracle and seems to gain complete omniscience and control of the Matrix.
At this point, essentially, you get the impression that he has assimilated everybody.
He is the Matrix at this point. And... that scene with him and the Oracle is actually pretty fantastic.
It is pretty fantastic, and I highly recommend.
Weaving's just a good actor.
If you're going to watch any part of the third movie, I would recommend watching that.
Just all the Smith parts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at that point, it becomes
you're a bastard.
You would know, Mom. So Neo goes to the Machine City. So many people are dead at this point, and Zion is maybe half an hour away from being completely annihilated. Neo walks up to the main, what becomes the voice of the machines and says, I know what you want. And they're like, we don't want anything. He's like, if you let this continue...
Yeah, essentially...
if you let this continue, the AI Smith will take over everything through the Matrix and own all of this.
The voice of the Machine City is essentially like, we don't need any help! Well, I'm here to help you. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it understands very quickly that they're screwed if they don't let this happen. It becomes Neo and Smith in a fated boxing match in the sky, which is
so at this point,
glorious.
Agent Smith, since he's assimilated the Oracle,
and
he has visions where it's like I know how this ends. And we win, so everyone else is just gonna stand by and watch while I beat the shit out of you.
And it's a
pretty epic. It's
10 to 15 minute punching match.
It's a 10 to 15 minute Matrix meets Dragon Ball Z battle.
And in the end, Neo sacrifices himself. He gets purposely assimilated into the what I've termed as the Smith virus.
Fair.
Then something backfires. Smith, we'll get into this on, the actual theorizing later. Smith dies, the program backfires, and it resets the whole Matrix, setting back everything, freeing everyone from the Smith virus, and achieving a semblance of peace between machines and humans.
Meanwhile, the body of Neo gets hauled away by the machines in a pseudo-Jesus hanging on the cross angel kind of thing.
Yeah.
God is with us.
Okay.
Amen.
Plot summary. Let's get into the actual nitpicky bullshit.
Let's get into the nitpicky bullshit. The second movie, pretty good.
Okay.
Second movie's pretty good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It set up a lot. It took the things that they set up from the first movie and expanded on them, expounded on them, and made them feel more like a whole universe.
It added a little, and I was thinking about this as I was watching it. The original Matrix is very much a setup film.
Oh yeah.
It's the opener. It's actually very New Hope-ish. It's here's the black and white.
Oh, believe me, I've gone through original trilogy hurdles in my mind throughout this entire thing.
No, the original Matrix is New Hope. Here's the black and white. Okay, you understand that. Reloaded is the empire of, okay, now here's the gray zone. It's now we need to understand everything that's happening here. Let's go deeper. No. And that's kind of the purpose.
And the only difference between the third Matrix movie and Return of the Jedi, in my mind, like thematically, is that we have painted a picture where the machines aren't necessarily the villains.
Yeah.
The machines are just the other combatants. Like,
yeah, that's actually a good way of putting it. By the end of it, I wasn't really it becomes very clear that the machines are also stuck in this endless cycle because they don't have an answer. I think the architect talks about this at the end, where it seems very implied that the architect's design, and this is actually implied by most of the series, is that the architect and the Oracle came to two different answers to the problem of what to do about this endless war between these two civilizations. The architect's answer was keep the status quo, reset it, keep everybody alive, and just keep things functioning. Because we don't have a full answer, so let's just keep everything in equilibrium.
Right, essentially, you don't want to destroy mankind because you don't want to commit genocide.
Yes.
But at the same time, you also know that this war hasn't ended.
And that's where the architect sits, where he is very much a status quo equilibrium, just keep things going, this will just be the way we function now. And he has become very accepting of the new normal, whereas I think the Oracle talks about this at the end, where her entire purpose is change.
Well,
because the architect talks about this.
Her whole premise was to understand how mankind thinks and works and functions. That's what she was designed to do. That's why she's the Oracle.
Right.
And her conclusion from a complete understanding of mankind was this war does need to end, but it needs to end in peace.
Right. And it's that man desires choice and change. And she talks about this at the end with the architect when the Matrix is fully reset, and it's the two of them, and he says, you played a very dangerous game. It's like, well, change always is. It's this had to change. You may not have accepted it, but you knew this had to change. I knew this had to change. Yeah, it took gambling all of our existences on Smith and Neo figuring out a way of dying that will be functional for everyone and resetting the Matrix in a way where everything is peaceful. And it literally took gambling everyone's existence on Smith dying, but it worked. And to her, that was what made it all the worth it at the end. And she even kind of talks about that at the end, where she's like, it was a lot. We could have all been doomed, but peace has been achieved, and it'll last as long as it can.
I would like to postulate that even if Neo was not successful in his actions, that his sacrifice would have still caused the machines to sort of take a step back, essentially.
Sure, but I can agree with that.
The sacrifice of this person, I get the impression that based off their history, it was the first time ever a human being had sacrificed themselves for the machines.
That would actually make sense with the Jesus allegory, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's that you're not sacrificing yourself for humanity, you're actually sacrificing yourself for both humanity and the machines, which is why it's more meaningful to them, because how many humans have sacrificed themselves at this point? Like, how many people died during the defense of Zion?
Well, yeah, but they're defending their own survival, not the survival of the Gestalt, the whole of everyone.
Fair enough. No, I don't know. What do you think of Revolutions?
So Revolutions is great. Wait, no, sorry. Reloaded is great.
Yeah.
Revolutions, I got some serious problems. First of all, Neo isn't in half the movie.
No.
Like,
no, he's not.
They take a hard left turn and turn the movie into this mostly a war drama, which isn't bad, but it isn't The Matrix.
I'm under full opinion that this movie could have been 2 films.
Probably.
If you would cut out, because think about it, there's a solid hour with searching for the Oracle and figuring out where she is, and then finally seeing her, and then the movie actually starting and Reloaded. Like, the movie starts after Neo finds Seraph, who finds the Oracle, who then they run into Smith for the first time. Like, that's when the movie truly begins. Before that is a lot of tertiary character, secondary character stuff, which is important for building a universe and stuff like that, but not necessarily necessary to the Neo plotline. If you want to make a movie that's just the Neo plotline, Reloaded could have just been Oracle to the coma scene, and then you could have just pieced together the rest from the coma scene. Like, you didn't even need to go into a coma. It could have just been all the other stuff with Neo attempting to get to the Machine City, and that could have been the end of it.
Well, and here is the other thing for me, which is I still stand by what I said before, which is that, like, the moment when the moment when they start their whole mission to reach the source, they've got the keymaker, and the keymaker starts explaining what the plan needs to be.
Mhm.
That could have been the end of that movie. Just a
Oh,
setup
yeah.
for what the next movie is going to be about.
And then just everything from that point onwards is Revolutions.
The thing is, you could have
Minus
spread
the war drama.
You could have spread this out into 4 movies with everything that they had.
Probably. Considering how much, oh my God. And I will say this, don't get me wrong. I am someone who actively says, I understood this movie the first time around. I understand I sound terrible saying that. I also fully understand that most people do not understand this movie the 7th time round. This series, if you are not fully paying attention and just watching the film and trying to comprehend it, can be very confusing very quickly if you're not used to sci-fi, or you're not used to cyberpunk, or you're not used to this allegorical kind of stuff. It can become very confusing very fast. Like, there could have been a lot more explanation in turning this into 4 films. I actually agree completely on that one. They're kind of a mess. I mean, the war drama of Revolutions is cool. Like, I like a lot of those visuals, like the APU units, the war that happens at the dock, like all that kind of crazy stuff that goes on. It's very awesome to look at. Necessity-wise, I'm not so sure. I feel like as important as Zion was to the plot, it doesn't feel like it was extraordinarily necessary, and it feels like a movie that if they had just had the balls to release a 4-hour film, we would have a very different experience. It's like that. It's like when Kill Bill got cut into 2 pieces, and you're like, you could just like cut off the bookends and stitch this into one film, and it'd be a lot, but it'd be glorious. It's that same kind of thing with the Revolutions, where it's like if they had just had the balls to just do this and make it exceptionally long, you could have had one of the best sci-fi epics of all time.
Fair.
I think because the allegorical stuff, I will also argue that I feel like watching them back to back helped us out a lot. Because how many years were between Reloaded and Revolutions? How many people must have forgot?
No. Those movies came out 6 months apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
I guess
they
there's
were
less of an
released
excuse then.
in 2003, both of them.
Huh.
They did it on purpose. They filmed them both on purpose.
To be released that way, because that's the kind of stuff that the Wachowski siblings would do. Sisters? Wachowski sisters. They're sisters.
Now they're both sisters, yeah.
Yeah, no. This is the kind of thing the Wachowski sisters would do. Like, where it's like, yeah, of course they would release that kind of crap rapid fire.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still like these movies.
I have to say, I walked away with a better appreciation for them. Also, I walked away after you telling me that there's more ancillary content that was released.
Yeah.
And I want to know more.
I was going to say, for a final note, why don't you hit me with some of your lingering questions? Because I know way too much about this series. Why don't we close on that?
Lingering questions.
About ancillary stuff, or like what you think might be cooler. Because I already told actually, quick thing that I noticed in Revolutions watching it again. The club keeper, the guys in charge, the bouncers at Hell, which is the Merovingians club, they actually directly call Seraph, it's the wingless one.
Do they?
Yep. And he's also the only character that wears white in the entire film.
Oh,
he is so implied to be. He is an agent from the first Matrix who survived the reboot and has been serving the Oracle ever since. Because that was when the Oracle first implemented choice. Because that's also something that's implied. Is that the architect...
Seraph is kind of Lucifer?
So, not really. So, well, actually, partially. So, the architect is implied to have created the first Matrix. The Oracle then created Matrixes 2 through 6 with him. And that's when choice became an aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Seraph was an agent during the first Matrix who then decided to serve the Oracle from then on out. We don't see him in the first movie because I don't think the Wachowski sisters thought of him, because, don't get me wrong, I think he's an awesome concept, but I also feel like he must have been something they put in afterwards.
That's fine.
But he is something that is implied to have served the Oracle since then. And so he's the only character that wears white. And the bouncers at Hell say, hey, it's the wingless one. Yeah. Kind of awesome, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Anything else you got for me? As far as random cool facts?
Not really, honestly. Like, I don't do well with this kind of questioning. Like,
I'm trying to think. The Merovingian is implied to have been around since Matrix number 2 because all the knockoff agents that are under his employ are implied to be agents from Matrix 2, which are the ghosts, the aliens, the vampires, the werewolves.
Mhm.
Apparently during Matrix 2, they were using, or Matrix Model 2, they were using horror monsters to try and keep the human race under control by using them as agents. That didn't go so well. So he kept them around and has been using them since.
the big lingering question I have
Sure.
is, if this is like the 6th or 7th time that the machines have killed Zion, how are they so good at patching up the holes and burrowing in from a different spot? Like,
I imagine there has to be some rebuilding process that happens. I actually imagine Sentinels closing the holes every time.
me too.
Like, that's gotta be what happens,
It's
right?
batshit insane.
It's
the Sentinels go in and repair all the damage that they've done to reboot Zion.
But when you think about it, this is the kind of batshit insanity that the architect would come up with, where it's like, we need to achieve equilibrium.
Mhm.
We're at equilibrium with the human race. I can't stop you all from murdering each other.
Burn it down, build it again.
Exactly. You could probably call this one of the best war is hell sort of, like, it's a very anti-war film in that way when you think about it, where you're like, yeah, literally, why the fuck are any of us doing this? I do like, I do like the touch of the black cat at the end of Revolutions. That was nice.
I mean, that's just some fan service.
No,
really.
but also, I mean, they talk about that, where a black cat shows up every time the Matrix has been changed.
Well, it's not a black cat. They don't say a black cat. They say
Deja vu.
Deja vu.
But it's implied to be, like, also the black cat thing.
It does represent itself as a black cat.
Ooh, also, other thing that two things I want to talk about before we leave. One, most diverse cast I've seen in, like, how the shit did, like, that was 2000. Like,
Yeah.
half of the characters are black or Latino or Asian descent. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, the two main characters are, I guess, Trinity and Morpheus, who are not Trinity and Neo, who are both white. But
Right.
all of the side characters, Locke, Niobe, Ghost, Morpheus, Link, the Oracle, Seraph, everybody, like, most of the rest of the cast is of a diverse group of people. It's very interesting to look back and be like, damn, movie, you're doing well with your ability to represent minorities here. I was really shocked.
Yeah, it was really great to see that. I noticed that as well. And the thing is, it was great because it wasn't done in an exploitive way. It was specifically like, yeah, these characters are black.
Or
period.
Mostly just these are people.
Yeah.
Which is always my preferred way of doing that in any film, is just people.
Well, and that is what I mean.
No, I know.
Honestly,
but unless you're dealing specifically with those kind of racial divides in your fiction, like, just why not? Why can't this person be a woman? Why can't this person be black? Why can't this person be
It is
Asian?
a perfect example of
why not?
colorblind casting.
Exactly.
Where it's just like, they don't need to be anything. They're just people.
No.
We have the character. Whoever could play the character well can play the character.
Yeah. And I think it enriches the movie quite a bit. It allows for a lot more of just, why not? Like, everybody here is a person.
Exactly.
We're human. And I actually like that there's no racial discussion in the film that way, where it's like, no, literally existential crisis of machines outside knocking on our door. Shut up, we're not doing this.
Yes. Agreed.
Other thing was, and I kind of wanted to make this point, I think the reason why I like the Matrix series, now that I'm, like, looking back and watching it again, it reminds me so much of the days of action films where it wasn't, I don't want to be it wasn't just about the action, man, but it was like, it was an action film with, like, soul and a universe and, like, some kind of depth behind it. Like, I think that's why I like John Wick so much too, is because there's that implication that there's so much more to this than just shooting people. Like, don't get me wrong, the shooting people in John Wick is a lot of really good shots of shooting people. Like, it's a great movie for an action sense, but it's also, like, well structured, well plotted. Like, the world they build is pretty awesome. I don't know, it reminds me so much more of that, like, soul of movie that I don't think comes across in the modern action film. I don't know, it felt like there was more to it.
Yeah.
So overall, you'd say a pretty positive experience then?
Positive. I still have problems with the third movie, but the second one is definitely a banger.
Hey, I'm glad I changed your mind on it. So what are we doing for the next episode, John?
So for the next movie, we talked a little bit about this, and I just have to say, dude, you're in trouble.
Oh, God.
You're in big trouble.
All right. Oh, hi. I see where you're going with this. We're watching Big Trouble in Little China.
Andrew has never seen Big Trouble in Little China.
I have not.
That is a movie that I loved ever since I was a child. We're gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna watch it.
That sounds fun to me. Why not?
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.